Hello, writehive. Welcome to our panel, Media Literacy 101. My name is Stephanie, and I will be your panel moderator today. I have four incredibly knowledgeable panelists with me, so if you have any questions for them, please make sure to drop them in the Discord chat, and our panelists will answer them as soon as they can. First, please let me introduce you to the panelists we'll be chatting with today. To start, we have Brad Lee, who is a graphic designer, illustrator, writer, cosplayer, and movie reviewer from Quebec. Raised by samurais, aliens, undead, wizards, pirates, princesses, and superheroes, the meanings and powers of art and fiction as tools for social commentary or self-expression intrigued him from the cradle. He started a webtoon comic strip, Murasaki, The Last Assassin, an idea born from a passion project. And while working on his contemporary fiction works, in 2025, he joined the team G Poor Geek, a Quebecois blog and podcast about geek culture in the province, and became one of the main contributors for movies and TV show reviews. Brad is also a coordinator here at writehive, where he has moderated several panels during our annual conference. Welcome, Brad.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's the first time that I'm actually here as a panelist, so I'm excited and not nervous at all.
No nervousness here. We got you. Okay, so next, Katta Kis' first job was playing a vampire baby in a student film, sealing her fate as a goth child for life. After a variety pack of jobs and apartments, she is currently settled in Northern California. She cohabitates with her two adorable demon babies, masquerading as cats, and her high school romance, which never ended. When not writing, she can usually be found reading or at a concert. Thank you for being here today, Kata.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for this. Also a little nervous.
Our next panelist, Matthew Phillion, is the author of The Indestructibles, a YA superhero novel series, its spin-off, Echo and the Sea, and the Dungeon Crawlers novella series. He is a member of the Salem Athenaeum Writers Committee and was the lead writer for the opioid awareness education stage play Stories of Substance. A former filmmaker, Matthew wrote and directed the feature film Certainly Never, an indie romantic dramedy, and is a journalist and writer with a background in healthcare quality and cybersecurity. Welcome to the panel, Matthew.
I always feel very self-conscious hearing my bio read out loud, so thank you so much for doing it on my behalf. Thank you so much. Very happy to be here.
Finally, we have Ryan C. Bradley, who hates long walks on the beach and beaches in general. He gets sunburnt if his reading lamp has a bulb with over 100 lumens, but he sure does love reading and writing, especially horror. He's been playing guitar for 20 years and splits his time between teaching lessons, writing, long distance running, and raising a gremlin toddler. His books, Say Uncle, Bad Connections, Saint's Blood, and Dumb Bullshit for Brilliant Idiots, co-authored, are available now. You can listen to his mellifluous voice on Horror Hangover, which he co-hosts with Cass Clark, as well as on his Patreon, Drop Dead Fiction. Welcome to the panel, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, panelists, so we are here to give a talk on Media Literacy 101. Let's jump into our questions and get started. First, to set the baseline, what is media literacy and why is it important to be media literate? Brad, can we start with you?
Yes, so depending on your source and the context, media literacy could mean many things. For start, I have the definition of the National Association of Media Literacy Educators, which is the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, create, and act using all forms of communication. By that, also we talk about ads, propaganda, movies, books, publicities, graphic designs, marketing, and so on. It's so it has different applications and depending of also social media as well. depending on the context, it might take different. The media literacy is very different, let's say, 100 years ago, when internet didn't exist. Why is it important? Because media is everywhere. We are in a world that is media savvy, and we basically and not only as creators, as writers, we want to be good communicators and make sure that what we want to say is communicated well. But also want to make sure that if we take like online outside sources, that we should take to the right place. But also just as consumers to make sure about what to decide to choose or support or promote or share to be more knowledgeable about what all the things that actually means.
Well said, exactly. Thank you. Katta, anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think that it's such a good skill when we spend most of our lives online to be able to tell like if something is worth our time and if what they're trying to sell you, because it may not be that they're selling you a product, or if they're selling you a product, you immediately have to be very careful about whatever you take from that. But also, like, are they trying to sell you an opinion? Are they trying to like give you a bias towards or against something? And as someone who I grew up with my dad's a Soviet refugee, so I was very much trained that everything is propaganda, and you have to look at everything. And then I went and did freelance journalism, and then I did public relations, and I saw everything from like the two angles of like what you do when you're trying to write news and what you do when you're trying to create news. And it's just kind of a fascinating thing to see how everything gets sort of twisted. Even if you're trying to be neutral, there's no real neutrality. It's hard to be neutral. Everyone has their own biases. And so the closest thing we can get to neutral is to notice what the bias is and sort of work against it. So if I'm telling you something, you have to look at it and go, well, she might want it this way because this is how she sees something. Or if I'm reading something off the internet and I'm like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. I don't got to reference check anything. But I have to look at my own bias and be like, well, it makes sense because I agree with it. And so I might be glossing over something. And it's very insidious. You never know what's an ad or what's a bit of propaganda.
Exactly. Very true. Thank you. Matthew, what would you add?
I'm glad that you brought up the media and the marketing side of things, because I like that we're talking about it now in terms of fiction, but I was a newspaper reporter like when there was barely enough internet to have arguments on the internet, and even back then I used to tell people never just read one paper, because even if you don't mean it maliciously, human. You're filtering information from one human to another human to another human, and you've got to have the tools and the awareness to find the truth, in there. Never rely on one source, because there's enough opinion that kind of weaves its way in there just naturally, because we're people and we have thoughts. And then I went into working in marketing and PR, and it's like, and here's where they're doing it on purpose, where they want to kind of nudge you in one way or another. And I'm glad we're talking about it. I feel like it's always been there, but folks are using media using fun media now to kind of nudge the needle one way or the other, in ways that it used to be like, okay, pay attention to that commercial's telling you what Coke tastes like. You know what I mean? Like that commercial's telling you that this battery brand is better than the other one. And so I feel like we've lost a lot of that need for the media literacy, because it's into the fun stuff now, where it used to, the real used to be like, make sure you're getting your news and your factual information correct. And now it's like, now we got to be aware of everything. So I'm really glad we're having this panel today, because that's, it's almost like everybody needs media literacy for everything. So that you can always kind of have both eyes open. So I'm glad we're talking about this today.
Same. Thank you. Ryan, what would you add?
Yeah, you all nailed it down pretty well. I would just add that with the fun stuff, like when you are analyzing a story, that skill is what's going to translate into analyzing the news articles and the ads. It's the good practice. It's like analyzing Star Wars is going to help you not get taken in by everything else if you're really analyzing.
Exactly, which has been a big topic of conversation lately. So thank you for adding that as well. Okay, so what are the main questions we ask while doing media analysis? Kata, can I start with you on this one?
Please. So the main questions I ask are who made this? Who's paying for this? What are their sources or experience? And what are they trying to sell you again? Product, point of view. So like when uh, I've done a lot of like I have a lot of chronic stuff, so I've done a lot of why does my whatever hurt on the internet? And so a lot of it is like, okay, filter by this person is has a blog that, looks like it was made on in like GeoCities. Maybe I shouldn't trust that. Or this blog is trying to sell me their weird supplement that hasn't been FDA tested. Okay, maybe I shouldn't trust that. Or this is a medical association, but now it's the CDC, and the CDC can't be trusted right now. So I got to go to Australia or the UK and see, it's a lot of like contextualizing the piece of media. Like nothing is in a vacuum, nothing is pure. So you just have to look at it from all sides and be like, okay, what do I have? Where are the grain of salts here?
Kata hit all of the like those core questions that I want to ask. I'd love to just expand because it's that idea of asking them in every context. One of the gigs that I do is writing about healthcare, and I get a lot of pitches, and sometimes they are well-meaning pitches. But I always ask, okay, what's the company behind it? Oh, it's an actual physicians organization. Well, some of them have they're pushing this thing or the other thing. Let me make sure. And it's always you've got to kind of keep peeling the onion to make sure you're never take anything. It sounds paranoid. Never take anything on face value, but always just ask. What. I don't remember. It's probably Sherlock Holmes or Batman. Who benefits? I always ask that question. Who benefits from getting me to agree with this without thinking too much about it? So it is asking all of those questions. Who's paying for it? Who benefits from it? Who is there an idea or an ideology that they lean into? That I won't name names. I'm reading a book right now. I'm like, this feels like it's pushing kind of an agenda. I'm just going to look up the author and just see what their background is. I'm like, oh, okay, that now I understand where they're coming from. And it's that teaching yourself kind of thing. And to because there's always something there, whether it's benign and accidental or and I do love that you brought up the CDC specifically because as a healthcare reporter for a long time it was like I had colleagues working at the CDC. I'm like, oh, it came from the CDC. That's cool. And now it's like, now it's like, now let me double check that. I love that you pointed out that it changes. Like what was true yesterday might not be true next week. So, kind of it's this ongoing learning and ongoing of asking those questions that we can't forget about.
When I was teaching component comp two, we did something called a crap test, which is going to be basically what you all are saying, but currency, relevancy, accuracy, authority, and purpose. With any article you're reading, you should be asking those 6 questions. And then when it comes to stories, I think a lot of stuff gets lost. People don't ask what the story is about, and they focus too much on the trees and miss the forest.
Yeah, I mean, mine is pretty similar to others. I guess mine, the way I formulate it is more broad. And we'll see that because it also depends on like case by case. Actually, we go up with like 5 type of questions, which is who, to whom, what, how, and now what. Who did it? What's the background? How's also knowledgeable about this topic? What did they do before? Is this one person or this person? Is it a case of a movie? Who's the director? Who's publishers? Are they paid by someone? Are they sponsored by somebody? To whom? What is background? What is the political background? The gender, age, ethnicity, education level, social economic status, and what is how is that what's the author trying to say, and how what are literary devices try to do figure of speech. Do they use fake news, propaganda, logical policies, satire, construction, humor, so on, and what is it how people react, or how should you react to it? Like, is it something you should agree promote, or is it something you should condemn, something you should ignore? And again, it depends on case basis. Like the way we analyze, let's say, a logo or a company is different. Let's say the next Toy Story movies I watched 2 days ago, but it's still the same question.
Thank you. And along those lines, I think Matthew was the first one who really brought it up or spotlighted it, but can you truly separate the art from the artist?
Yeah, I love this question because I think there's that's a phrase that we use a lot, and I think this phrase is almost too simple because I think it's possible to enjoy a story by a bad person, but I think we hurt ourselves by separating the art from the artist because that removes the ability to do the analysis that we need to understand why the art exists in the first place. I mean, my favorite first number one example is Lovecraft because possibly one of the worst people to ever walk through the earth, but it's worth looking at what he's done and why it lasted and why he was so awful too, and that helps us understand. And then also we'll see people take his work and then do things that would have put the man in a grave if he saw it happen. If he watched one episode of Lovecraft Country, he'd have dropped dead, right? Like because it's antithetical to everything that he lived his life as. But I don't think you can fully separate it because I think that removes your ability as the reader, the consumer, the audience to fully understand it. I think the human brain can go nope and push it off to one side and just watch a movie or read a story, but I think you're doing yourself a disservice. So I think it's physically possible, but I think it just hurts you as the person to better understand the world and to ask the questions that you need to understand, that you need to ask to understand the work that you're consuming.
Yeah, I agree with Matthew. I think there's like it's possible you can be ignorant of the artist and what they do. I don't think you can know anything about the artist and not have some part of your brain bring it in as you're reading, watching, whatever. I used to, when I was teaching Comp 2, I'd have kids write a research paper on this question. I feel like so I think it is a thorny question. It's like, what do you do with the work of like Lovecraft or like Roman Polanski, people who have done or are doing bad things? I think I mean, it's not a definite conclusion, but I think one of the big questions you have to ask with that stuff is by supporting this artist, by reading their work, consuming their work, paying for their work, am I allowing them to keep doing the bad thing they did? I think that's the most important question for me because I don't think you could ever really separate it. And like Matthew said, you'd just be losing context. If you read Dracula with no context, it's still a good book, but you're missing out. Like it's 1897, the transfusions they have in that book were cutting edge at the time. It seems very old to us, but like a lot of stuff in Dracula was like brand new cutting edge technology. And so like not knowing that affects how you read it in all these interesting ways. But yeah, I think the main question for bad artists at least, or canceled artists, am I supported by supporting them, am I allowing them to continue doing whatever it was that they did?
I have to ask myself like questions for at least over a decade to explain, it has to be by the confidence. I would say there is like 3 big books of fiction that were very crucial to my childhood and had, I would say, a very positive impact as a person. Also, like, helped me grow up, also helped me want to inspire to write stories. The first one is Dragon Ball. The second is Harry Potter. And the third one is Ronnie Kitchen. Now, and I would at least say yes, yes, those what I was getting teach me a lot of good things. Now I grew up, and now we are 26, and J.K. Rowling became J.K. Rowling. Nobuo Watsuki is the author of Ronnie Kenshin, was charged of the category of possessions of adult picture involving minors. I'm gonna phrase it like that. And Toriyama, as author of Dragon Ball, was actually a pretty chill guy. I wasn't funny. I wasn't bothered with any issue with him, but his works have aged horribly. Compared to like Harry Potter, that have a character named Cho Chang. What Toriyama did in Dragon Ball was way worse and jolly. And I had to ask myself a question about, okay, how can I wrestle with that? That was a question, that's something that I enjoy as a kid, and focus on talking about in just enough, but have the concept or like were made by people who cause harm. And the thing that I have to remember myself is that multiple things could be true at once. Like it is possible that those works were also put for like the good in the world, but also cause harm at the same time. And the way I will balance it is different from case to cases. Let's say for Dragon Ball, for example, I'm just making more cautious about how I tackle some of the more problematic elements of that show. And for Kenshin, when especially when it comes to like the new shows that we do, I'm less willing to like support that show considering like the still benefits money. And and all of those cases were like it's like author writing books. They also have the show that they write books, so it's easier to like okay, it's like one person fine. In case let's say on movies where it's like one person is problematic in the group, it might be more complicated because let's say an actor might be the face, but he won't receive any money if the movie succeeds. While the producer might not be the one that puts his mind, but he's the one that will receive the most money. And so it really depends. And also, it also depends on the severity. Some case, like let's say Letitia Raz, they might have said some inconceived comments during COVID, is not at the same level as Roman Polanski. Like Roman Polanski, I'm like no, sorry, Letitia Raz, I'm like, okay, she's a movie, sure, I don't like to say, but whatever. Roman Polanski, I won't watch his movies. And then you have to navigate each case by case.
Personally, I can't. I think there's a lot of nuance to it, though, that everyone was exploring really nicely. I really agree with like, are they alive? Are you giving them money by, supporting their stuff? And then I think part of the nuance for me is, can I then see what I refused to see before? So, like one of the artists that I can no longer support is Marilyn Manson. And I loved his music. But now I look back at his music and I go, why did I not see this? I read his autobiography. It's pretty gross. But I thought, I excused it. I thought, oh, he was 26. He was just being shocking. No, he was telling us exactly who he was. And like, I think that's really interesting is what we will excuse because someone is a bad boy or, playing a character or whatever. And where is that line? And like, what we want to believe. I think it comes back to that bias of like, well, I like the music, so it's probably fine, or he's probably just misunderstood or whatever. And then, at a certain point you have to draw the line and be like, I can't listen to this anymore because all I can think of is what he did. But I also understand that like if someone's dead, it's a little easier to be like, well, it was a time, it was a place. Maybe they didn't know better. Though a lot of things are still inexcusable. And certain things like, I don't know. For me, it's hard for me to unsee what I've learned. It's hard for me to take away that context. And so I think maybe some people can do it, but I find it really hard. Especially as an artist too, because I know how my brain affects my work. It all comes from my brain. So like I can't there's different facets for different things, but like in the end it's all that same person.
So maybe delving a little bit deeper into this, how does knowing who created a media and to whom this media is addressed change the way that we can view that said media.
think those things are almost essential now because we have so much more access to creators through social media. You can I don't know if you really get to know anyone through social media because it is all a lot of artifice, but I think you can at least see public faces. Artists are giving themselves and their work in a way, I don't know, 30 years ago you couldn't. So yeah, it absolutely should impact how you're reading the work. I don't know if it should be the main thing, but I think you should be thinking about those things as you read or watch anything.
The way whom is addressed in the pack is not only about the way form, but also to understand to make you also interested about okay okay how if I react this way, how someone who is target audience will react to that, and that would be very different. If it is there's a story there's a book that is center around let's say Norwegian culture. I'm not Norwegian. I've never been to Norwegia, so there might not be some black spot that I don't know. It's like a middle still like 5,000 books that existed. That was that is very different than who I am today in Canada 2026. And sometimes I have to fake to make that change because sometimes the way they communicate with the language and the ways they send messages is different than the way I would present a message. So sometimes you have to do some adjustments.
I really liked a lot of Brad's points. I think especially the men writing women one that hit home for me. But I think really if you know who someone is writing for, you can say, oh, this didn't hit because it wasn't for me, or this didn't hit because they didn't know what they were talking about. But you can also see uh certain things like, oh, this was created for network television, so they can't say this. Or this was created for network television. So like we're watching Superstore. It's like super late, but we're watching Superstore right now. And in the first episode, they had no branding. They had no paid promotional content. And then as the show goes on, there's more and more brands everywhere. And it's sort of a game for us to just, my partner and I, to just be like, oh, that person paid for this. Oh, they only paid for half their brand show. Oh, this, oh, this, oh, this. And, as you're thinking about that, the show is about working in retail, which, both of us have done. And it's somewhat critical of big box stores. But you have to realize that at a certain point, it can't be too critical because those big box stores are still running ads during the show. So it's interesting to watch as the show gets more popular, they can say more because their ad slots cost more or, they're making more money. But then you also watch where it has these very obvious sections where they're like basically advertising Amazon or Microsoft or something in the dialogue. Like there was one episode where they reference Oreos like 15 times and they're eating Oreos through the whole episode. And it's like not even the good Oreos, it's like the weird flavors that that they need to push. So it's really interesting to see like, okay, so this was made for us, but it was also made to be an advertising vehicle in some way. And that kind of detracts from the message and it detracts from like how far they can go in storytelling. And I think that just sort of changes the way I look at it and say, okay, well, if they had more leeway, if they were on a streaming platform, maybe before the streaming platform started to do the same thing, they might have been able to say more.
Love all the points that have come up so far. The one thing I also like to think of because where we've been let down by so many creators over the past, I was going to say couple of years, the past couple of decades, I guess, is who created it, who's it for, and were they creating it because they were trying to get to you specifically? Like I think we found a lot of people who found writing empathetic stories got an audience that would follow them and be very loyal and buy every book or every movie, and almost the awareness of are they playing to me specifically and why? And sometimes are they playing specifically to me because we have a similar worldview and we want to make the world a better place, and you're telling a story about making the world a better place and that's cool, or am I being manipulated a little bit because you're playing to what makes me feel good? And I think that's part of why we have trouble letting go when we find out something has become a problem, because it's like, but they were doing the right things and they were saying the right stuff and I was agreeing with them and we were all going to do this together and make the world a better place, and you lied to me. So there's that kind of, I think that's one of the hardest challenges in media literacy, is being able to shift on your end when you find out that who's creating it and who the audience is don't line up the way it was sold to you originally. Because it's one thing to find out, oh, you were trying to sell me a Heineken. It's another thing to find out, oh, you were selling me optimism. Like there's this level of of how big the betrayal is. And I think that goes back to our earlier points of who benefits and how. I think that's just another thing that I always try to think about. I think about it now more than I ever did, because we keep finding out different things about different creators. It's almost like are they pulling on my heartstrings on purpose, or is this sincere? And then you're never going to know until you know. It's part of the reasons why media literacy isn't easy.
So, what are some common mistakes or red flags that we should consider in media analysis? Brad, can I come back to you?
Yeah, there are many we could mention. I'm just gonna mention the first one that came to mind. First, the anti-intellectualist attitude, or also that you also heard at, it's not that deep, or it's just for fun, or it's just occasional, it just blank. Sometimes it is more than that. Sometimes it's more than just a surface level reading than you see. Sometimes it could be, yes, sometimes it could be maybe in the field. Sometimes they just throw something into the surface. And just because something is quote unquote for fun family doesn't mean it doesn't have other message behind it. And just because it's a movie doesn't mean it has to be done. Like an example comes to my if I take the Transformers movies, you can say, oh, it's just a fun movies. Is nothing there. Yes, it is a movie made by entertainment that has a certain way to portray the police and the military, and have appeal to the female gaze. Is made by a director that is often that is known to do other things, and is recently a big commercial, not only for the multiple product placement, but also for the toys that represent these characters. Even something not that deep has some deeper things behind it. Another thing is these are buzzwords that are often used. Like, if you want to talk about, hey, I think this movies try to appeal to a marginalized group, but do it in a pandemic and accessible way. There is a way to formulate it that is good. You don't have to use the one buzzword that come into your mind to say it. Mainly because of the way it is used right now, is mostly derogatory and it will make a lot of people raise their eyebrows, excuse me. Another thing is the middle ground fallacy. That is, oh, I'm going to take two extreme sources. I'm going to choose the middle. Sometimes, and although sometimes it could happen, sometimes one side is right. When it's like if someone say 2 plus 2 equal 4, I would say 2 plus 2 equal 2, the answer is not 3, it's 4. Yes, that's the one. Yes, another one is depiction equals investments, whether it's we refer to sex or violence or drugs, or villainous energies. These are discussions to have about uh, how 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 uh, how to tackle well those topics and how you could and be careful about not doing fetishization and stuff like that. But on the set, in those monologues where everything is really not even when the main character in the story do it. Just because the main character do it doesn't mean that the story condone the character. It's really his character is meant to be the villain of the show, like the boys. um, yes, generative AI, just that. Next point. Um, yes, also black and white thinkings. Was something like a media could be more than one thing. A media could be also good, but also bad thing. It could be also be great some ways, but also problematic in some ways. And it's not always uh, that one you don't have to like choose between one answer so one interpretation over another. Sometimes multiple things can be true at the same time. Uh, Another thing is double standard. Like if you don't apply the same standard to the other works, like when they apply to so super cool, you can also come with some issues. Like for example, if you don't like let's say a character that are like sexually explicit, like Deadpool or Daredevil or She-Hulk or Star-Lord, no, it's your opinion, but if you only want what you present is She-Hulk, I'm gonna ask some questions. And the other one is just like not about media should be or I should be political. Every piece of media has a message is political. It's just not some of them are just some of them are just less divisive as others. And usually the way people actually argue is that it's not necessarily about stories with political elements. It usually when about stories when the character is able-bodied cis white male. And the last one I would say is just like I was just acting impulsively, just acting about the first instinct and not necessarily take the time to like sit down and process about the media you're consuming. And to act, because that's where it's easier for the media to manipulate you and to make you to do some regulatory actions. Is when you act from an instinct itself instead of like taking the time to like reflect about what you're saying or listening.
Well, Brad covered so many, which were all really good points. I would say I would come back to confirmation bias. Like, just because you agree with it doesn't mean that you can't, it does shouldn't check it. And also sunk cost fallacy. So, like, just because you've read all this author's work and now you find out there's a problem doesn't mean you should just stick with this author's work or, stick with this line of research you're doing or whatever, you can quit a book, you can quit media, you can stop something when it's not working for you. The time you invested in something does not equal quality, unfortunately. As many of my drawer books will tell you, just because I spent years on them doesn't mean they were good, you know. But just, look, just try to be self-aware about where you might be digging your heels in on something or not wanting to look at something just because you like it. Like, you know, if someone tells you, I think Toni Morrison may have said this, but if someone tells you who they are, believe them. And I could be quoting this person completely wrong because I did not put it in my talking points like a bad comms professional. But
Maya Angelou.
Maya Angelou. Yeah, we had Toni Morrison in our trivia group, in our come up in trivia last night. So that was where that name popped out of my head, which, just goes to show you, you can't trust your brain. Just because it pops out of your head doesn't mean it's right. As trivia keeps telling me time and time again, I don't know as much as I think I do. But anyway, yeah, doubt your brain to a healthy degree, and like just double check everything.
Sure. I actually, stepping outside of just doing, reading or consuming media, it's something I find in the writer community itself is, especially in our social interactions, because authors are online talking to each other all the time. And I would say every day, maybe every hour, I have to go, is this an honest mistake, or is this person trying to get every author on the internet mad? To get us to start yelling at each other. I won't call it out, because by the time this airs, it will be over. But I'm like, I think I cannot tell if this person was just making an innocent, not particularly well thought out comment, or if they wanted every author on every social media platform to get really mad about this one point and create a mountain out of a molehill. And then what benefits that? Where's the benefit there? Are they just a troll throwing a cat amongst the pigeons? Are they trying to build a brand? Are they trying to sell a book? What are they doing? And asking your question, am I mad because I'm actually mad, or am I mad because they told me to be mad? And using some critical thinking skills before you even engage with someone's book or something like that. Did they do this on purpose? And something else, I don't know if it's already been brought up or not, but I always, for red flags, does it feel like the writer put the effort in? You know, like, are they, especially because bringing up the idea of writing from other perspectives, men writing women, white others writing people of color, like, does it feel like they actually put the effort in, or do they feel like they're just doing it so that they can add that to their repertoire, or add that? I remember saying, because writing is an empathy machine, so you do want to learn other perspectives, like you do want to, and reading other perspectives helps, but are they doing it for themselves, or are they doing it for their audience? Like, ask yourself if they put the work in to learn what they're writing about before they try to sell it to you.
Yeah, I was going to agree with Matthew. I think sensitivity readers are great for what you're talking about. If you're going to write a woman and you're a man, you should have a woman read it over and tell you what they think about your perspective, if there's any like big things you're missing. I love Brad and Katta's point about how you have to question every media. From what I've read, it's like things you agree with just slip into your brain and then make you believe it forever, because your brain is just like primed to believe things that fit your worldview. For me, the biggest red flags, I was thinking more in terms of like in the way people are analyzing. I think a lot of people have opinions of things before they've read or seen them. Like right now, there's a huge thing with people are angry that Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey movie cast Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy, which is complete horseshit that they're mad about it because you haven't seen the movie yet. I'm sure she'll be great, but I think a lot of that, and then people, if you go into like the comment section of any article, you see a lot of angry opinions from the headline who have not actually read the article. I think people need to do a better job online of like, if I'm going to have an opinion on this thing, I have to have an informed opinion. I have to have seen the thing. I have to have read the article if I before I start offering opinions. And this is like the result of like 25 years of there's a new Marvel movie. We're going to have 17 trailer react articles, and we're going to have an article explaining the ending of the movie. And all these people who haven't seen it now have these like just preconceived notions. And I don't think that's good for anybody or anyone.
How can our own biases change the way that we view media?
I think I'm just going to harp on some confirmation bias here, but also like sometimes we encounter something that goes against what we think is true. And there's this knee jerk, what? No, that can't be. And I think we really have to acknowledge that and go sit with it and go, well, could it? Like, could this be true and we just didn't know? Or could this be true and it's scary to admit that? I think a lot of people have that with like the gender binary, where they're like, well, there can only be two genders because I've been doing this my whole life. And if I've been doing this the whole life and it's just been made up, then what am I doing? And that's a really scary thought. And, you know, but there's so much more out there. And what we've been told is everything is not everything. Not what we've been told is historically accurate is often skewed, like the idea that there was two genders forever, or that pink and blue meant girl and boy, are like pink meant boy at the beginning of the last century. Like these whole things, it's so mutable and changeable, but we have this idea that things become permanent, and there's no such thing as permanence. Like everything changes, everything evolves, and that's really scary. And I know my brain hates it when I'm like, oh, when things change, and I have to sit with it and go, okay, well, this is not permanent and it's gonna change, and your tattoos are gonna fade, or your piercings are gonna grow over, or someone is gonna move away and you're not gonna be friends anymore. And that's a scary thought to tackle. And so, like, to bring that back to media, you have to go, okay, well, this creator has changed, or, the way I look at it has changed. I can no longer watch Love Actually the way I used to when I was a kid. I can no longer read J.K. Rowling. I can no longer do this, but now I appreciate this more, or this makes more sense to me. Now I understand Office Space because I worked an office job and it makes a lot more sense to me than it did in high school. I think embracing change is just like so hard, but really helps uh, sort of counteract those biases. Um, but then on the flip side, also just questioning everything and knowing that, like, maybe this thing doesn't need to change, but this does need to change, or like, this is still true because I have enough evidence to back it up, but now I have to let go of this.
That was really well said. I think there's just that idea of being able to train yourself to be able to let go. I always joke around. I joke around bitterly that I had like, okay, there's 5 guys. I hope they don't turn out to be awful. I just assume everybody else is awful. We've learned everybody's awful. I'm just gonna give me these 5. I got 2 left, and I'm already mourning them. Like it's maybe they'll pass away before we find out. And it's like I think you have to kind of be prepared to grieve a little bit when you learn these things. And as you were saying, like change is hard. Changing yourself is hard. And there is the human brain kind of wants to put its fists up, like, no, I am right. This is what I knew was true 10 minutes ago. And I think that's our biggest challenge, right? Is accepting that what we thought was true isn't true, or that we might have been wrong or misinformed, or we didn't have the full perspective. And also just that there's going to be things that'll surprise you. Like, no matter how well prepared you think you are, something's going to pop up that'll break your heart. And being ready to try to accept that and process it. It really feels like I know I felt like I was grieving when I lost a lot of my favorite creators. Like, oh, but I did this because of them, you know. And there is that urge of like, is it that bad? And usually it is that bad. And there is that sort of that's the internal bias that we've got to get by, is getting over the walls we build as readers and as writers. We build a castle that we think is stone and it's sand, and being ready for that, I think, is the hardest thing to get over.
I think I've heard the term for what Katta and Matthew are talking about is intellectual humility. Just like acknowledging that there's a good chance that you're going to be wrong. And in some ways, I have an advantage to this because I've been wrong about just about everything my entire life. Um, so I think, but yeah, intellectual humility, acknowledging you can be wrong and being open to change. And I guess what I would other add is like, be aware of what your biases are and where they tend to come out. Like I'm a big New York Giants fan, and I've never seen Silver Linings Playbook because it's about the Philadelphia Eagles. But I know that's a bias of mine. I know that's like a silly example, but like whatever bigger example you have too, just being aware of your biases. I think a huge one I see online a lot, at least, is that people think stories have to fit a certain rubric or be about a certain thing. Like, but there's always more than one way to tell a story. Like, so not every story has to be about like, okay, this is going to be the perfect world and everyone's nice to each other. Unlikable narrators aren't bad necessarily, or like necessarily a reflection on the author, because there's more than one way to tell a story and there's more than one thing people are trying to do with stories. And so just at that very base level, when you read the first chapter of a book, trying to figure out what is the author trying to do here, whether it matches my rubric for a story or not.
Yeah, first of all, I like what everyone was saying, especially because it kind of made me think about sometimes the issues sometimes like I also see that people could put the people have the tendency to idolize a piece of media or a person who creates that media and have then difficulties to see them to remember, oh, they're human. That means they also have flaws. That means they also big. Well, mistake also like serious crimes, in some cases, and you and they're not perfect. Is this possible? Like to do mistake? Um, Battle Royale is my favorite novel. If I heard that the author was very horrible, I'm in the stage. I'm like, well, okay, well, I won't be as upset as upset now. Not mainly because I try to make myself not to make sure that I don't like put people or piece of art into our pedestal. And they are human. They are all art is created by humans. All else have class. About other ways biases can be changed on the media. As Katta said, was yes, is an issue of perception. Bias, especially with algorithm in social media. Well, often you end up usually like examples that basically just refer to preconceived ideas instead challenging them. A big example that came to mind is a couple of years ago. There was a trial of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Was very the discussion online was very interesting so in that case. But the thing that those are like depending on which one which side you were on, your news and your videos also receive would reflect that. Which means that if you want, oh, I think this side is right, you're gonna see all on your videos and things that which just reinforce what you really believe. And a few of them, although some people did a good thing to like try to like analyze and see to make a focus on, other people just stick to one positions. And basically say, my side is right, or the side doesn't know when the tech is wrong. And also realize they're basically like trained by the algorithm to like push by the algorithm to fix that very specifically. Um, another philosophical take I call as of the mention is just the consistency in your skepticism. Having a good level of skepticism where analyzing is good as long as you apply the same level everywhere and not just the one you disagree with. If you want to be skeptical about this, so you have to be skeptical about the one you agree as well. No, usually if you are in the right side opinion, quote unquote, you usually don't have to fear that self-examination. It was just, okay, 2 plus 2 equals 4. Fair. But it's merely to make sure that you don't have that to make sure that your bias doesn't prevent you to see the truths that are missing.
So, how do you navigate a world where not everyone is fully media literate? Matthew, can we start with you?
Yeah, it's tough. I think that's why panels like this are important. But it also can be tough because if you are media literate in a world where people are either not ready for it or willfully not ready for it, it can be just exhausting. I was trying to come up with how do you do it? I'm thinking it's courage, empathy, patience, and resolve, not necessarily in that order. Have the courage to speak up and try to help people hear sides that they're not aware of. Empathy to understand that people might not have the tools to have gotten there yet, and patience for the education component, and also the resolve to be like, okay, this person willfully doesn't want to be media literate? At what point it's okay to walk away? You know, like you do your best to get there, and also don't destroy your own mental health trying to like there should be put some energy there toward, because there are people that will, oh, I didn't know that, or thank you for helping me be aware of that, because certainly, as you're saying, like things in terms of the algorithm and what you're reading, and the world will feed you your bias forever and will not tell you what you're missing unless you ask for it. So having empathy and patience to help other people get there is important. And the courage to stand up and say when there's something, when there is misinformation, or when there is things that people that, and the ability to protect yourself or to protect your community if you have to, because it is exhausting. Like there's certain topics that have come up already. I'm like, I can't have this conversation again with another person. You know, I cannot. I will, you know, like I don't ever want to have another conversation about trans rights and J.K. Rowling ever again. I'm going to. There are days of the week where I'm like, today I'm not going to, because I'm out of patience for myself. I'm out of empathy for the day. But I'll come back again tomorrow and beat my head against the wall. But because when you are media literate, there's a certain responsibility to try to help other people, and there's a responsibility to yourself to understand that you can't save the whole world, but you can try to save some of it. You know, and try to share the tools that you have learned. Through panels like this to you know, don't hoard that information that you have. Help other people get there, but don't destroy your own mental health to try to save everybody. I think would be, because it is tough. It really does feel like it's not every day battle. It's like an every minute battle, really, against the lack of media literacy.
Matthew's answer was great. Like I said before, I used to be a college professor. I think the biggest things are you have to be gentle with people as you try to change their mind, because you can't, it's not like pulling off a band-aid. You can change people's mind, but it's got to be like a long, extended discussion. And you have to ask a lot of questions rather than, I don't think telling someone, okay, you're wrong, this, and this reason why, even if you were right about it, you're never going to convince them that way. But if you ask them, like, okay, you made assumption A here, where's that information coming? We're talking about the Odyssey and Lupita Nyong'o's casting before, and like, okay, why do you think there was no people who had darker skin in Greece? Where did you get this information from? Do you have evidence of this? What's the evidence? And if you question them in that way, you can get them to kind of see, like, oh, I didn't know what I was talking about. But yeah, you have to be gentle and find in every argument there's assumptions, and you have to find what those assumptions are, and that's where you have the space to question that person.
Well, first, don't debate strangers on the internet. That would not really be good things. But just aside, I like when both Araya and Matthew say, yeah, ask question is a very good thing. Like something that comes to mind is that I'm in a Facebook geek group that wants to help set down letters up. In the downtimes, where often they will share obviously rage big fake news presenting gay culture, usually revealing the same three actresses, and really inflammatory academic statement. And I'm just like, I don't think I heard that. So then I look up quickly. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fake news. Okay. Then I look up and like, okay, guys, where do you guys where did you get your source from? And quickly, no one can answer. Like, oh, okay, that's what's happening. And some people realize after that, oh, it's not true. Not everyone. Everyone wants to say, yeah, but it's still something I agree with. Like, yeah, but it's still not true. But on micro earth level, the first thing you could start is just like by helping people I want to. Usually people won't trust strangers online to their wrong, but they are more likely to accept criticism from someone they trust. Like if a friend to me, be careful with that, be careful with that. It's like, oh, thanks. I didn't realize that. It happened for me actually like 2 days ago when a friend shared me like a Facebook news about some person who mistreated the pet cat. It's like, oh, look at how horrible it is. I look up the article. It was it contains a comic made by AI with a blank profile picture, and there were no socials, no names. Like, okay, it's one of those two. Is I told my friend, that's not true. That's like a clickbait AI picture. Oh yeah, but do you think it might be mistake? No, it's type of article that is new, that is like made for engagement that just solicit a reaction like, oh, thanks, I didn't realize that. Um, other thing that navigator would with when that everyone is really this very tight. It also, well, you should write a story to choose the target audience. uh, Not everyone will get everything, and you have to accept that. Like, there's some people who don't get the basics alligator racism movies, like don't get as dope about racism, or like Narnia is like Christian allegory, or like Get Out about racism, or they don't get all even like Obsessions, the last movie that came up when it was clearly like Me Too, Me Too s themes, and people say, "Oh no, is actually the victim." And sometimes you have to get okay. Some people won't get it, and that is okay. And sometimes it's like, okay, the dumb people, I don't have to tackle to dumb people. I could tackle to people who at least understand me, and even if you just cannot chase every man, you can chase some. One thing I did recently, for example, is that I'm all of the reviews I did. I made an article explaining how the Rotten Tomato system works, because there were a lot of disinformation too late coming out after the Mario movie. There's a Mario Galaxy movie. And I basically made that article basically, and also like with research, so like to basically explain to people this is how the system works, and this is why it knows all the ways they are. And there are some people that just, oh, I didn't know how the system works. That changed a lot of things. And that's the multiple ways you could also, I guess, navigate it overall when not everyone is literate. You won't change everyone's mind, unfortunately. That's how it works. Everyone has their own bias. That's also true, but at least you could change some, and at least try to make our world a better place.
For me, it definitely boils down into not shaming people. Because you don't know what you don't know. I don't know things, you don't know things. The things that I think are obvious, like they put more makeup on the lead of a romantic comedy as the movie goes on, so she looks prettier by the end. Someone else may not know that. Or like, different lighting methods and how they change how someone looks, or like color schemes and all that. That may be obvious to someone and not obvious to other people. And I think we have to be compassionate about that, but also not engaging with people who are obviously trying to rage bait you, or they just want to fight. That's not my problem. I don't care about you. I'm not here to talk to people on the internet about things that they don't want to learn about. You know, um, I think a lot of these conversations are, like Brad said, better with people you trust, or in person if possible. Like just being like, "Oh, that's weird. Where did you hear that?" Okay, but when I looked it up, AP said that was this, or whatever. Like if you can do a quick Google search and be like, I found a trusted source and this doesn't seem to line up, let's talk about it. It's easier than being like, you're wrong. Like it just like there's people don't learn when you shame them. It's like pretty well shown. Dr. Devin Price has a whole book about it called Unlearning Shame. That just shuts you down. And I think that's like a big problem in our discourse is like we tend to shut people down, um, or people say things in such a radicalized manner that it's hard for us to not shut down. So trying to find a way around that, trying to find ways of being like, you know, uncle, I don't trust what you just gave me, and here's something that maybe shows you a little different. Like, can we talk about this? Um, can make it a little easier. And, also just knowing when uncle is not gonna change his mind and there's no point in talking to him about it and just being like, I gotta go over there now. Someone's calling me, it's such a balance of, keeping your own sanity and helping other people navigate the world better.
Okay, so then what are some practices to help develop our media literacy skills?
Yeah, we have this like weird double-edged sword now where with like the rise of streaming, everybody has access to like millions of movies. I don't even think millions is an exaggeration. Even if you just have like the free streaming services like Tubi. Uh, so people are, I think, watching more and more stuff. And I think there's also this like push. I don't know if you saw the interview with the Netflix executive who said something along the lines of like, we don't want you to have to look at the screen as you watch stuff. We want you to be able to just double screen the whole time. It's like those are things we're pushing against. But with the internet, there's also like the other side where like if you watched a movie and you Google that movie's name and review, you can get what I'm assuming. I mean, I can't imagine it would happen to be exactly your view. You can get a new view on a movie, someone else's take. And I think it's really important if you want to build your lead your media literacy, finding other people's point of views either online, in person, especially people who aren't trying to fight you in some way. But I think getting more than one point of view is the best way to keep growing. And then like we talked about earlier, being intellectually humble, and then like Matthew said a little earlier, like critically thinking about the media. Don't just watch it and let it flush out of your brain while you play a game on your phone or read a book. I don't know what the reading a book equivalent is of double screening. I don't think you can double screen with a book, but but think about it afterwards. Ask yourself what it was about. Ask yourself questions because you're going to find answers are in there. But yeah, critically thinking and then getting more than one point of view.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would say just by being there, you're already helping to learn more about media literacy, not only by watching this video, but by attending this conference as well, because it's like many tools that will help you to be a better storyteller, to better to know more about stereotypes, know more about the industry and how it works, and how the media works, and all of those tools are useful to be media literate. I would say I'll just come on a high base sometimes just to slow down and take your time, especially in a way of streaming that when we see TikToks that try to say the most amount of things like a per minute. Tweets also have a short time to like to send themselves. And it's necessary to push you to like click or share. It could be maybe easy to just follow the way, just okay, click and share as is, but it takes time to learn to learn about wait before I do anything. Let me just think about what I'm doing, what I'm saying, what is trying to do. So, like, for example, couple of not 2 months back, someone was sharing a story about a PhD person similar to a non fact about the African American slavery history. And I was like, sure. But I'm like, what? Let me fact check this just to make sure, because obviously my biases will have me assured. But okay, let me fact check again. The person has a PhD, the stars faculty. So okay, it seems for everyone. Okay, now I can tell. And sometimes you just take like a couple of seconds just to make sure that okay, to make sure that what you're posting is right, because that's sort of to avoid an additional misinformations. And also say creating media also have what it is look, but first of all by writing it's a good one that no when I was I started to do movie reviews that not it's like it's like not only made for to analyze that but also uh, to to analyze of myself I do media because although because the blog that I'm writing is as I'm saying is a medium is a from that I'm like to share. I'm trying to share to the people. I'm like okay, what is the best advice I could say to that audience so that about what I'm talking about. Yes, I would say that would be some of the also if you want to know more about media CGS in general, there's also a crash course on YouTube to also follow as well. During this discussion, I will advance myself to put that link in the chat for people to see.
Practicing, like Brad said, slowing down, reviewing things for yourself, even just discussing them with other people and seeing like what they think, what they saw, comparing viewpoints. And I think also just sort of looking at the world, not necessarily through the lens of the screen, but like putting down your phone and putting down your computer and touching grass and just being like, okay, here's perspective. Because sometimes I'm stuck inside like all day, and everything just feels like it's closing in and it's awful and there's so much terrible news. And then I go outside and I'm like, oh, the sun is still shining and the sky is still up there, and my block has not burned down, and maybe everything's not as bad as I thought about it, and that it just sort of reorients things, like it can pull you out before you get into these like rage bait spaces, or you get into these like sad things, and then you look at it and go, hold on, I think someone is trying to pull my heartstrings, or I think they're trying to make me mad, or I think I need to think about this a little longer. And like, I think the slowing down is really a big point, like Brad said, because like a lot of the mistakes I make when I'm going fast. Like I'll make typos, or I'll misread an email and be like, but where is this thing? And then I'm grumpy about it. And then someone goes, well, it was in the email. And I go, oh, you know. And I think we make those mistakes in media as well. We go fast, we read things, we take in a lot of media, we take in more than we realize, like ads on the park bench or on the bus or in the billboards or in the, between in the YouTube between the videos or in the videos themselves. Like it's all over these things that are trying to grab our attention. And I think if we can take that back a little bit for ourselves and sort of process, that really helps, because then we have a shorthand for when we are going too fast and we go, hold on, something's not sitting right. And then that can help us slow down and take a breath and be like, this is why I'm mad, or I'm not actually mad and I need to get out of this space.
I'm glad that, Ryan, that you brought up the whole second screen thing, because we're kind of fighting against two things. The world kind of doesn't want us to be media literate. They assume we're distracted. We're on multiple screens at the same time. Our brain is in two places at the same time. My first editor always said I'm unitasking. He's like, I'm doing one thing. He's like, monotasking is for computers. Unitasking is for humans. So we're kind of fighting that, and we're also, it always sounds paranoid to say, but it's true, we live in a post-truth society where, you just, people will believe the first version of something they hear, and then you spend the rest of eternity fighting that first truth that they hear. And so that idea of slowing down is really the key to it. It's like, give yourself time to not split your attention. Give yourself time to actually sit with things. We just got back from a vacation. I never take vacations, and offline for a week. Barely checking email, and I'm like, at the end, I'm like, we've been robbed as a world. Like I feel like we've been robbed of the opportunity to actually live our lives at the pace that we were born to do it. And I think that's the challenge to making yourself more media literate is Lucy's always pulling the football away. Like I'm trying to take the time here to learn things, and you keep making it harder. And that's the challenge because we're all so busy that it is hard to make that time. But if you can, put the effort in to do it because the world wants us distracted. It wants us busy. It wants us not paying that much attention. It wants us, it wants us chasing the squirrel. And so that kind of becomes on us to find those moments to actually to touch grass. Like I literally was like, I'm out in the Scottish Highlands. Like it's green out here, and there's no internet connection, and this is the best I've felt in years. So there's. It's funny because we're like, be more media literate. Spend a little bit less time with media. that actually kind of helps a little bit because then you can kind of reset your brain and be better prepared for when you have to ask yourself those questions later on.
All right, everyone, it's our final question. Why should you be mindful about the ways you decide to tell a story?
Yeah, I mean, mainly because the media visual has a bigger impact than what we think of. Something that, by the way, just want to say, something I forgot to mention that I also do is that sometimes I go to events like Comic Con and do panels with different topics. Some of them include interaction between Black and Asian culture in media. And a common show and a common thing that come up is how through the years media perpetuate a lot of stereotypes of types about minorities and how the origins of those stereotypes, which is usually propaganda, and how a lot of them uh, uh, have shaped the way you project the way some in the ways we do not have been about. A big example for that is the industrial depiction of African Americans during the 19th centuries have passed away to animators in Japan who were manga in Japan who were comic book, like Akira Toriyama. You used to how you go to movies and say, oh, that's how they could depict black people that we're going to depict them just like that, just like that. More even darker example of that would be the movie Birth of a Nation, who was shown as a race during the early 1910s, and is the reason that the KKK has had a resurgence in the US. Now, it's also basically a very like extreme example, but there is always that has an impact and how to be careful about that. Hence why the other talk before about having sensitivity readers to talk to actual people, to go outside, and to not just like and and also like be also smart about what we decide to communicate. Like, wait, I use that trope. Why do I want to? Why do I want to why do I want to that natural this way? Wait, I want to process characters this way. Wait, what? Why do I want to process characters this way? And by being like careful and make sure that okay, be more cautious about the way we tell a story, and not necessarily in a way to let's say censor ourselves. It's a way to make sure that we are more conscious. Uh, you don't want to offend people you don't plan to offend. Basically, it'll be a matter about what you're doing.
All right, there was like one thing he said that now is like flown right out my head that I was going to agree with. Oh, so yes, the way you depict people is super important because that may be the first time that someone has met someone of, that race, that gender, whatever. And so you have to be careful with that. And also like Brad was saying, the stereotypes become how people relate to people. So that was a big thing in Nazi propaganda was that the more you repeat something, the truer it becomes. And so if we're repeating old stereotypes, uh, it becomes easier for people to believe it. And also, like, we should be taking this as an opportunity to just look at what we believe and be like, oh, that's outdated, or oh, that is wrong, and I know it's wrong. Why did I put that in there? And having sensitivity readers really helps with that because sometimes we just can't see something that we've been writing for years and we can't see it clearly. But like even small things like you might say, "Oh, this song is by so and so," and it turns out you've been thinking that song was by so and so for years, but it was wrong. Just doing little fact check things because I know that I've noticed that when I read fiction, sometimes they'll say something about a real world thing, and my brain will go, "That makes sense," and then I just keep reading, and I don't stop to be like, "Is that true?" Because I sort of trust that the author has done the fact checking, which I really shouldn't. But like nowadays I try to flag it in my brain that, oh, I learned this from a fiction thing and I have to double check before I repeat that to anybody. Um but then there's still things that come up into my brain that I'm like, I know this is true and I have no idea where it came from, but it's just popping into my head. And someone asked me this question. I think this is right. And I'm really good at saying things confidently. So they think I'm right. And then we have a whole issue. So just like double checking everything and being mindful of the way you're portraying people is super important because it makes people like me say less things that turn out to be wrong.
The how has been covered really well. I wanted to just touch on the why because of what we're talking about today. Like we're talking about being more media literate and taking in information. We as writers and creators are part of the conversation. So we have an actual responsibility as people who put words and stories and information out into the world to do it well. So we have to be mindful. We have to think about the things that we're saying. And we have to be prepared. We have to be prepared for pushback. We have to be prepared to be wrong. We have to be prepared to learn as we go. And that takes work. I think the mindfulness is just everything. So I write superhero stories, and I don't put street level crime in my stories anymore. I did 15 years ago. I did. I'm like, I've learned enough about crime and poverty in the U.S. I'm like, I'm done. I've learned I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't. It bothers me to read it now. I won't take back the things that I wrote in 2010 because that was 2010 Matt. That was a different person. But that mindfulness of like learning as you go and being aware that you are part of the conversation and the things you say do carry forward and to your readers, to your viewers, and as kind of just said, like like they'll remember. Like I read this somewhere, and they might not remember if it's from you. And if you are a confident writer, you might be giving the wrong information out there. So just the whole mindfulness thing is, we're not just media literate. We are creating media literature, and it's important that we take responsibility for what we're doing because it's important. Stories are important, and we need to remember that.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone said. I think Brad and Kata both made great points about how like if someone's first interaction with a type of person isn't a book, that's going to be their stereotype of that. I think that's great. I think that's what I want to add. Like, if you were a sociopath and you don't care about that, you should be aware. Like, if you're writing someone different than you, you're going to be absolutely under the microscope, and you have a craft responsibility to get it right outside of your ethical, moral responsibility.
Well said. Thank you so much. So, unfortunately, it is already time to wrap up this panel. So, everyone that is watching, please drop your final questions in our Discord chat. We will stick around a little bit longer to continue answering questions from our WriteHive 2026 attendees. But before we wrap up, let's go around the room and briefly let our viewers know what projects you would like to plug and how we can find you after the conference. Can we start with you, Kata?
Sure thing. My cat is trying to lay on my mute button, but we can try. Um, So I am Katta Kis. You can find me at kattakis.com. I am most reachable through my newsletter, but I'm on Blue Sky at Katta Kis, and sometimes I'm on Instagram, but rarely. So yeah, you can find me all over. I write the Pagans and Pop Stars. Nope, shit. Uh, I cannot do mirroring. I write the Pagans and Pop Stars series. This is the latest. That no, I'm not going to point. That's the latest is up behind me, which I will not point at because apparently I cannot point at things correctly like this. There's No Love in LA. It's the third in the series, but you can read them in whatever order you please. And I'm always happy to talk media literacy. I will be in the Discord lurking around.
Thank you so much. Matthew?
I'm at MatthewPhillion.com, but mostly I'm after saying get offline and go out into the world. I'm perpetually online on both Blue Sky and Threads. Mostly, I do poke around on Instagram, but it's mostly pictures of my dog and the cats fighting with each other. And if anybody happens to be, I think the timing of this, if anybody happens to be at Fin Expo Boston, I have a booth. I'll be there. It's one of the shows that I'm doing this summer, and I'm always happy to talk shop, whether about media literacy or just stories in general, anytime.
Thank you. Ryan?
My latest book, I'm also struggling with mirroring, is Say Uncle from Ghoulish Books. I have a Patreon, Drop Dead Fiction. I'd love more subscribers on there. If it's interesting, I do little goofy flash fictions with horror, and once a month, audio and written music. And my website is ryancbradley.com. You can find me on a bunch of different socials, all as RyanB4890.
Perfect. Thank you. And Brad?
First of all, thanks for inviting me to this now. Thanks, Stefanie, for the moderation. If you ever, si jamais vous parlez français, if you ever speak French, you could look up my blog J'ai Pro Geek, which I mostly do the movie reviews for that blog. At the time, on some of that posting, I should have done the review for the story fan at the minimum. Other than that, I'm available on social media at Bradley.curate. On Instagram, it's posted like a stack account. And in the other platform as Thread, Blue Sky, or Twitter, it's mostly a mix of me like a cosplay and writing about AI.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Well, that wraps up our panel on Media Literacy 101. We hope you enjoyed it. On behalf of WriteHive, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you over on our Discord. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for hosting. Thanks for having us. Great meeting, everybody.